Hi there, this is Outdoor Gear Chat. We're talking episode 37 today. It's rattling along, isn't it? And in a return to the childish descriptions, we're talking ropes all tied up. So I'm joined as always. Did I say I'm Wayne? I am Wayne. I'm joined as always by Cathy. Hi, Cathy.
Hi, Wayne. I am Cathy Casey, director and co-owner of the Joe Brown shops in Llanberis and Capel Snowdonia, and also the Climbers shop in Ambleside. So, yeah, we're talking about ropes today. We do have a very special guest because ropes is just a minefield. But there are some companies that just stand out. Edelrid is one of those companies. It's a 160-year-old German company created by Julius Edelman and Carl Ritter, who one was a mountaineer and one was an engineer. And in 1863, they just decided over a pint, I guess, or a stein, that they should make ropes or cords, really, is what they started out doing. And now they've created this amazing company that is really at the forefront of sustainability within that sector of the industry. So we have one of their representatives here with us today, and that's Alex Smurthwaite. Hi, Alex.
Oh, see now Cathy's given that description as well. I've got loads of images of like rope making from like in the Navy in Chatham Docks. I went to a rope making thing, and they showed us how they used to make the ropes for sailing vessels down there. That's yeah, absolutely amazing. Sorry, I've just launched in there with a bit of wittering.
These
But
ropes are a little bit more technologically advanced than those ropes.
well, absolutely, yeah. Rather than stringing horsehair together, I think, which was what they were doing at one stage. Sorry. Anyway, I'll let the adults speak again. Hi, Alex. You all right?
Yeah, good man. Yeah, you.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, good.
so as you say, Cathy, we started in 1863. As you say, like Julius Edelman and Carl Ritter, hence the name. And yeah, started off making like cords, like strand, like rope for sort of like you say, Wayne, like for sailing and all that sort of stuff. And then sort of gradually throughout the years moved on into like the more like mountaineering side of things. And then in 1953, so I mean, taking a bit of a jump, but 1953 was kind of the first big thing we did. We invented the Kern mantle rope, which is kind of like the modern construction of climbing rope, i.e., where you have the load-bearing core and then the sheath is woven over the top. So that kind of became the standard, and then the hemp ropes that were woven out of horsehair on the docks kind of became a thing of the past in mountain sports. So all like the rope breaks, and these are obviously static as well. So all that kind of negative like connotations of the hemp rope all just went away, and we kind of put forward the new construction, which is it obviously worked because it's probably slightly more refined, but effectively we're still using the same thing now.
Well, that's incredible, isn't it? And I'm just thinking, was it back on the race to Summit Everest? Because there were some German Swiss teams at the time that were going up against all the English mountaineers and so on. Was that right? Have I got that right somewhere?
I
Kathy's looking
believe
at me
so, yeah.
blankly. Yeah, but I'm sure there was something about that. But yeah,
Well,
so
there's
presumably
nothing
they'll be.
better than a race to kind of advance technology, is there? And a race up Everest is the nicer kind of race to create
Well, yeah, I know exactly.
technology.
Yeah, yeah. Rather than yeah. So yeah, I walk into Kathy's shop, Alex, and I look in the climbing section, and I'm just like, well, I've no idea what's going on. Why are there so many? Why are there so many types to choose from? Why are so many colours? What's the difference between all the categories and so on? So just
I
explain a
mean,
little bit about
that is a very good question. And to be honest, I think even now, I still think the same. Like there are a lot of ropes available, but I think a lot of it comes down to firstly, obviously, the type of climbing that you're doing. Your average climber going to the crag, maybe going to the wall, will just want something nice and simple, maybe like quite a nice bright color. That would be categorized as a single rope. So I just use it on its own, kind of single pitch sport or whatever. And certainly on Edelrid's sort of range, a lot of those now come in quite funky colours, have cool little selling points for each of them. So people can kind of be a little bit individual which one they choose out of that range. And then as you start to get into more sort of adventurous or slightly different types of climbing, obviously ropes change with that. we develop ropes with increased cut resistance. If you're climbing on like granite or like sharp gritstone arêtes, for example, in the UK. And then you can get into stuff even like, a big walking. If you're in the Alps, you want something really, really lightweight to minimize pack size, minimize walking weight and all that sort of stuff. And then obviously, you've got budget as well. The breadth of rope, certainly, although it looks intimidating, as you say, like when you walk into a shop, you've got all these brands, you've got all these different technologies. I think if you kind of break it down into individual categories and kind of work out what it is you're doing, and you can, if you went in looking for a sport rope, you can disregard probably a large proportion of the ropes on the market and just kind of try and focus your search on a certain type of rope and a certain like diameter, shall we say, instead of just kind of being baffled by this massive range that's available.
Yeah, and I know that's what.
Sorry, Wayne.
I was going to say that's what your staff are really good at, Cathy. I don't know whether you were going to say exactly.
No, I was going to say exactly the same thing.
That would be my experiences. Yeah, people go, well, what are you looking for? What's it used for? And so on. When I've been in for the kids for harnesses, just to learn how to go and do climbing stuff at the climbing wall, for example, it's been that question. And so that's dead interesting. And I guess it's the same as shoes, isn't it? There's loads of shoes, but they're all for a different purpose.
And I think from my point of view as well, obviously being on like the working for the brand and then selling into like various shops, I think it is a really nice thing about, like you say, Wayne, with like, the Climber Shop and Joe Brown's, having shops where the staff are climbers themselves and kind of passionate about the outdoors makes a massive difference in terms of being able people helping you out and like giving you a bit of direction. Because if you like you said, if you Google something, anything, you end up with thousands and thousands of different opinions. So to have someone there in a shop who can say, all right, this is what you want, I think is a really, really valuable thing.
Yeah, and that shop local and brands you trust and so on is huge for me. It is, yeah. You can buy anything off the internet, but I've lost count of the amount of times I've had to send stuff back because I haven't known what I've been buying. So so if we start geeking it up a little bit, so you've mentioned a bunch of phrases within your pitch there, I suppose, Alex, no pun intended. But talking about static ropes and single pitch and so on, explaining about the difference in what is static, semi-static ropes and so on, and how those can be used.
So if we start with like, so dynamic ropes are your sort of standard, what we call standard climbing rope. From Edelrid, most of our dynamic ropes all of them have what's called dynamic elongation. So it's basically if you sit on the rope, it's how much that rope is able to stretch.
Right.
Obviously it varies depending on what kind of force you're putting through it. But let's just say on average, it has most dynamics climbing ropes, you can expect to have a 30% dynamic elongation. And that basically means, if you were to fall, you put less stress on the anchor, less stress on your belayer, and less stress on yourself. If you fall on a static rope, which you should never do, but if you did, all of that force would go through the anchor, through the belayer, and through you. So within climbing ropes, generally there's 3 different types. So you've got your single ropes, which are kind of with Edelrid run for anywhere to 8.6 up to 10.5. So these are ropes that can be used on their own, single, and are generally used on, single pitch sport or single pitch trad that doesn't kind of wander around. So if you're doing like a very straight, vertical, nice, easy trad route, then that would be a good choice. Then we can move into twin and half ropes. So this is where it gets a bit confusing. So half ropes are, you'd climb on 2 ropes, 2 different colors. And if you were doing a route that kind of wandered around a bit, so say you were like zigzagging up a face, you'd have, say, pink on left, green on right. All the pieces of gear on the left, you would clip on the left-hand rope. All the pieces of gear on the right, you would clip on the right-hand rope. And this would effectively minimizes the drag across the gear, because effectively what you're creating is 2 straight lines as opposed to having one rope dragging across everything, which again would obviously put more stress on the gear, but also massive amounts of rope drag, so you won't be able to clip. It would make it really, really hard to pull through rope, and equally for your belay to take in rope. And then the last kind on the basic range would be twin. So twin's a weird one. It's kind of very, very Euro. I don't think it's used much in the UK really. Twin ropes are similar to halves in the sense that you need to use them together, but both ropes need to go through the same piece of gear, so they're not rated to hold a fall on their own.
On their
so
own,
you have to
right.
go at the same time. But again, quite a Euro technique. Really good in the Alps because, as I say, it minimizes weight. Both climbing partners can take one rope. And also it increases abseil, quicker to abseil off stuff because you've got increased rope length and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, Edelrid actually don't make a sole twin rope. Now, I'm not sure many brands do now. I think most twin ropes now are twin and half. But yeah, that's kind of a rough overview of the kind of ropes you can buy. And then you've got triple rated ropes, which are effectively, the easiest way of wording this is it's a really thin, lightweight single rope, but can be used as a twin and half just because of how thin it is and how manageable it is.
So you touched there, Alex, on diameter, which is a really it can be used as a good indicator to sort of understand what sort of rope you've got if you haven't got the instructions for it anymore. You can look on the end of the rope and there'll be a little rubber tip. And on there, there'll be information about it. There'll be a little logo, and that will tell you instantly what type of rope you've got.
Exactly.
But you can, as you said, absolutely, Alex. You can use diameter to get an idea as well. So for single ropes, you'd normally look at 8.9 to 10.5 millimeter diameter.
Correct. Yeah.
For twin ropes, you'd look at probably 6.9 to 8 mil diameter. Halves, 7.5 to 9 mil diameter, and then the triple rated, generally speaking, 8.5 to 9.1 mil diameter. And you'll find when you come in the shop, we'll talk about diameter quite a bit, because it's not just how light you can go with your rope. There'll be times when that is absolutely the critical factor, but going for a narrow rope isn't always a good thing. You need to always compromise on maybe handling. So a brand new super slim rope can go through a belay device really fast if you're not concentrating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you just need to be mindful of that. So that's another really good reason to come into the shop. And if you're in a shop sort of, we'll just talk about climbing probably for a lot of the time, and routes and what kind of routes you want to use them on. Some of the staff can probably advise you what rope to use on exactly what route and give you a given reason. But there's also loads of other factors, and it's quite interesting asking about colour as well, as you said, Wayne and Alex. Colour can be important as well, not just because you can take out your funky pink rope and it's Instagram ready, but if you're using twin ropes or if you're using half ropes, you kind of want a very different colour to your mate. So it's really easy to understand, right, I'm taking in blue or I'm taking in pink. It's really important to have a difference there. And if you're going to be climbing on like alpine routes and at night, you might want to just think about, can you see your rope in the dark? Can you differentiate in the dark?
Yeah, no, so this was something, actually, you've touched on a really good point now. I think if we relate it to something in the UK, Scottish winter, for example, I would always take the brightest possible rope.
Definitely.
If we look at mountaineering jackets, they're all mad bright colours. And using that similar sort of logic, you want a rope that's kind of clearly visible, not only for you, but also, God forbid, if you got into some sort of rescue situation, it's another kind of good indicator. Okay, bright gear, is really kind of good in those situations. Which is why, if you look at most of Edelrid's kind of top end, either triple rated or half ropes, they're all almost quite garish, bright colours for that reason.
Yeah, it's great. And actually, some of them are some of the ropes are woven with a different pattern as well, aren't they?
Yes, exactly.
And there's a really good reason behind that. I'll let you explain more on that, Alex.
Yeah, so one of the ropes that immediately springs to mind when you say that would be, so one of our main athletes is Tommy Caldwell. Obviously super famous big wall climber. That's kind of his thing. So we developed a rope in collaboration with him, which is a Tommy Caldwell Eco Dry, and we call it Duotech. So traditionally, on like say a normal sport rope, you'd have what's called a middle marking. So you'd have 30, say if it's 60-meter rope, you'd have 30 meters, and then basically it's like an ink that's painted onto a rope in 2 wraps, and it's like, right, okay, I'm halfway through when you see that. But after that middle marking, the rope looks exactly the same. So if you miss the middle marking or you forgot you've seen it or whatever, you've kind of no concept of where you are on the rope. So what Duotech is, the weave actually changes halfway through. So on the Tommy Calder, it's bright green rope, very, very Edelrid, and you'll have bright and I think it's green and white on one side of the rope, kind of woven together. And then as you get halfway, it changes to green and black. So it's a really kind of useful way of that kind of middle marking. That's a really good sort of way of, like you say, a different weave. It's a really good way of kind of identifying the halfway point. And also it's a good safety feature as well. Convenience and safety at the same time. With that Tommy Calder rope, we've made it extra durable. There's it's got a higher sheath proportion, which is effectively, the sheath is a bigger percentage of the rope than something that you maybe want a little bit lighter. So there's things like that to choose as well. It's all kind of relating so many small details that you can bring in to kind of deciding what rope works best for you.
Yeah, it's dead interesting. Like you said, that the safety stuff involved in all of those making points, isn't it? Like, yeah, and that latter point about it completely changing halfway is something else, isn't it? If you're a little bit tired, a little bit fatigued or whatever, and you're like, oh, am I past halfway? Well, it's a fairly crucial thing to you, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah,
is
exactly.
knowing that.
Yeah, and I think if you're sat on a belay in pretty crap weather or whatever, just really quickly chucking up rope to your second, it's so easy to miss a middle marking.
Yeah.
So it's like little things like that are like super useful, and can massively influence your purchase if that's something that that would be valuable to you.
One thing I definitely want to mention, and I forgot to make a note of it earlier, but many years ago I opted to buy a cheaper rope that was, well, its handling wasn't that brilliant. And then we went out and we climbed Amphitheatre Buttress. That's it.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, lovely classic route. But it was towards it was early spring, so there was still some snow in the darker recesses. And and the rope, we had 2 ropes. We were climbing with double ropes, and one was a dry treated, and this other cheaper rope wasn't. And as we got higher up the route, trying to pull, we ended up having, it was rope management, basically, how to get this cheaper rope through the belay plate. The other one with the dry treatment was working beautifully. That just pulled through. The handling on that was fantastic. But the rope, the cheaper rope, it was just like, by the time we got to the top, it was like concrete. It wasn't frozen, it was just wet, and it just, you had to basically crack it to bend it. Yeah, so I think it'd be really interesting to hear about the different treatments that you can get on ropes, Alex, and why it might be a good idea to trade up and get a dry treated rope.
So I mean, firstly, so you did touch on an interesting point there, like the price of a rope. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say Edelrid ropes are cheap, because they're not. They are definitely at the top end of the price point. But I mean, I've been around the Edelrid factory where they make them. It's all made in-house in Germany. If you think they're expensive, walk around the factory, and then that opinion's immediately like destroyed. Because I mean, the amount of work and the amount of like technology and manpower that goes into making these things is just insane. And at the end of the day, it's saving your life. So
it is an umbilical cord.
If you're going to cheap out on anything, probably not a rope.
I would agree on that.
Well, yeah.
I mean, t-shirt, climbing pants, maybe, but yeah. So in terms of the treatment, so every Edelrid rope, no matter what it is, goes through what we call thermoshield. Now, I'd love to explain what thermoshield is in massive detail, but I don't know, because they won't tell us. They're so secretive with a lot of this, because I think it's sort of trade secrets, I guess. But basically, what it is, in simple terms, is the rope goes through some sort of heating element when it's been fully finished. This is a fully put together rope, and basically, when it comes out the other side, this sheath and the core are tight bonded together, and it gives that really, really kind of nice supple handling that Edelrid ropes kind of are well known for. So that happens on every rope. Again, I'd love to give you more information, but I actually don't know. So then the technology we touched on a little bit ago, duotech. So that is where the rope weave changes halfway through. And then so moving on to the dry treatment. So Edelrid do two type of dry treatment. So you've got your standard pro dry, and this is effectively the core before it's woven is submersed in some kind of dry treatment. Again, they won't tell us exactly what it is, but it's some kind of water repellency, dirt repellency. That goes through that. It's dried off, and then when the rope itself has been made, the entire rope is then put through that again to give that dry treatment. And effectively, like you say, it great for winter, great for the UK really in general, but it basically just stops the ingress of water and dirt into your rope as well. So if you're using it on a really muddy crag, it will kind of stop some of that abrasion happening just because it does have a little bit more protection against the elements really. The other kind of dry treatment that Edelrid do is eco dry. The standard dry treatments use what called polyfluorinated chemicals or PFCs.
PFCs.
So basically what they are is they're used in most outdoor gear, so it stops the ingress of dirt, grease, water, but they're really not good for the environment. So what Edelrid have done is develop the world's first PFC-free dry treatment, which is we call eco dry. So again, they won't tell us exactly how they do it, but all we know is that it complies with the UIA, which is like kind of a governing body for all sort of stuff like this. It complies with their dry treated certification of less than 2% water absorption. It's not quite as, if you looked at it in a lab, it's not quite as good as the standard pro dry, but from the eco standpoint, it's a massive thing. And to be honest, most of our ropes now are moving over to eco dry as a result of just the increase, because like you mentioned earlier, the eco side is a big thing for us. But in general, like for standard ropes, really, those are kind of like the main treatments that we do. The main sort of features that you'd want to look for as well. So like the thermoshields for handling, you've got the dry treatment for dry treatment, and kind of various other little bits as well.
Just picking up on some of the words that you used in there, Alex, and maybe like sort of shifting the conversation a little bit. Really, about for me is like maintenance and of ropes, and how you treat them, how you clean them, how you look after them generally. What are top tips on that? Like you said, if you're getting on, if you're on a dirty crag and you've got a load of mud on your ropes, how's best to clean them? I'm guessing don't just leave it in the rain is probably the initial response. But.
Yeah, it's one of them. At the end of the day, if you're using a rope outside, it is going to get dirty, and manufacturers know that. So there are certain tolerances built in. They know that the rope's going to get dirty. No one keeps it in pristine condition. But main things would always dry it out, even if it's dry treated. Never ever use heat, but leave it kind of strung out. Over some hooks or whatever, stick it on your washing line or whatever is ideal. So always keep it dry. Generally, if it's a little bit like sandy or whatever, just kind of give it not a white, but just kind of a bit of a brush down, run it for your hands or whatever is what I tend to do. Just try and get a bit of that built up grime off. But then what you can use, so Bayal, kind of another quite big rope manufacturer a rope wash. So Edelrid we don't manufacture anything like this, but it is approved for use on our rope. So effectively, you chuck your rope in the bathtub, I think is what most people do. Pour in your rope wash. Water, sits around 30 degrees. Kind of give it a bit of a swell around, whatever. And then they also manufacture a rope brush, which is effectively you shove your rope for the middle and it's just kind of a really fine brush. It just takes away some of that built up grime. So if you do really need to wash your rope, you can do that. In general, to be honest, I think I've only ever washed a rope once, which was when a good mate of mine decided to walk all over it in really filthy Sportiva pals, so that it just ended up trashed. It's nice of him. So
is that an ex-good mate?
Yeah, well, it was one of them as well. I was going back to my mum's as well. So my rope was filthy, and then her bathtub was covered in grit, various other things for about 4 days. It wasn't an ideal situation, but I cleaned the rope. The rope was fine. My friendship was tattered in but the rope was all right.
Mum's bath, just out of curiosity.
I don't know. I escaped there for watching it, so I don't know. Yeah, but it's one of them. So I've never really needed to wash a rope. I think a lot of people, what you don't want to do is treat it like a piece of clothing or something. Don't feel a need to be washing it constantly. Like I say, manufacturers know it's going to get dirty. They don't expect to keep it as new. If it's really really dirty, you've been using it in a lot of sand or like sandy environments or gritty environments, then it is a good idea, because obviously grit can get inside that and then it will start to wear away. But what I would say is just don't be tempted to kind of constantly be cleaning it.
Yeah, there's no need to be doing that. Yeah,
it's a tricky one though, because there's not really any like exact guide on them. It's one of them, you Google it and everywhere says something a little bit different, so it can be quite a confusing thing. And obviously, if you're a new climber or you've just bought this brand new rope and it looks a bit grim or it looks a bit grubby, you want it looking nice and clean and fresh, because obviously clean. I suppose a lot of people would actually associate that with safety. Oh, it looks nice and clean, then it must be working to its sort of thing.
Like I say, I think I said before, and definitely said on previous podcasts, I'm not a climbing expert by any stretch of the imagination. So it's just dead interesting to hear, everything that goes into it, particularly from a technology perspective.
Well, yeah, I mean, like Alex was saying, a walk around any climbing rope factory, I'm sure would just be fascinating. But Edelrid ropes is their speciality. That's what they started doing. They've been doing it for a very long time. And it's really interesting to see from the website how much of the supply chain is within Germany as well. That's another major environmental plus. Things aren't necessarily shipped. I think it's 60% is German supply chain of their range. So there isn't this sort of tons of containers coming from halfway around the world. All of their expertise is within the country there. So that's really important. And seeing the sustainability message every time we go to the trade show. Alex, we saw you in Manchester, and there's eco. There's eco. There's always a story. It's fantastic to see that coming through, and to start seeing rope without PFCs is really a major leap ahead, because we all love climbing. We want to protect our environment. And
absolutely,
I can't even begin to imagine the science and the chemistry that must have gone into creating that.
No, I mean, like you say, I think it's outdoor brands in general, I think now are doing a really, really good job. I mean, obviously kind of the king of like the eco side of things will be Patagonia, and I think Edelrid have kind of really built off that model. Just a quick touch on the environmental side of things. So like, I don't know if you're aware, there's a standard called Bluesign. Bluesign. So what it effectively is, I'll read you their little thing from fiber to finished product. We partner with brands, manufacturers, and chemical suppliers because the world needs safer workplaces and textile production that are less impactful on the environment and people. So effectively, what it means is that every product that bears a Bluesign label complies with their quite strict requirements for eco-friendly textiles. So all Edelrid ropes are Bluesign certified, along with like a large number of our harnesses and various other little bits that we make. But as you say, ropes are all done, like literally the Edelrid office, the rope manufacturing is literally 10 paces from the office. So it's all kind of done in this, like, in on site, as you say. It's warehoused 10 miles away. So it's trying to minimize, be as eco-friendly as possible. Because at the end of the day, we're still manufacturing stuff, but trying to do it as eco-friendly as we can is a massive thing for us. So Bluesign would be the first thing. And then we have ropes. One of our kind of big eco pushes recently is the parrot rope. This is made using upcycled yarns left over from the production of all our other ropes in the range. So obviously it minimizes waste. And then because of, like the various colors that we end up with, all of them, every batch of parrot, is a different color and maybe a slightly different weave. So it kind of gives that really nice, unique selling point for the end user. Everyone gets a slightly different rope. And also it's that nice eco standpoint as well. You know that you're kind of contributing to using up yarns that would have otherwise gone to waste. So little things like that, make a massive difference. And then even little bits like, we do rope key rings, and ropes are used to do the trims on our rucksacks. trims on clothing, we've improved our manufacturing now. So we used to sell offcuts of rope, and they'd be like selling off dead cheap. But now all machines run, and they each have an allotted 10, 30 meters, 40 meters or whatever out of that machine. And then it basically results in no offcuts. So that was a massive thing for us. That was a huge amount of investment in new machines and new ways of doing things to try and minimize that offcut, avoid waste. Like I say, at the end of the day, we're still manufacturing stuff. It'd be better if no one made anything, but then none of us would be able to go climbing. So it's like you've got to try and kind of do it as best you can. And I think I'm very conscious as well. Greenwashing's a massive thing now. But I do genuinely believe that Edelrid are really trying their absolute best to be as eco as they can. And when you walk around the factory and you see it for yourself, and they explain it to you, it really does kind of ring true with what they're saying.
Yeah, and so you got that kind of environmental responsibility going on, but then also you've I don't know what kind of responsibility to call it, but basically the level and the quality of testing that they have for ropes is incredible. So if you're buying an Edelrid rope, it will have been through every test imaginable and will have probably performed above maybe what's suggested
Absolutely,
by
yeah.
UAAA and all the other bodies. So you can buy that rope in confidence, knowing that it is going to absolutely do the job that it needs to do when you need it, which hopefully you don't.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a room just off to the side of the rope manufacturing. It's basically a room full of machines designed to smash gear to bits.
Yeah,
I can't really think of a better way of it. We've got a little fake dude that wears a helmet and gets weights dropped on his head all day. We've got machines that shock load rope with like massive fall forces. I mean, you're talking like probably the weight of at least 10 of me. It's like the amount of force that they're putting these ropes through is incredible. And it's all done just off to the side of the manufacturing. So again, it's all like in house. All the feedback's really easy to kind of get around. There's no, so it's basically a room dedicated to, like I say, straining gear to its absolute max. To make sure that, like you say, Cathy, that it's safe for whoever ends up using it.
Yeah, it's you can dial onto YouTube and see all different types of all different rope tests from different manufacturers, and some of them you watch them and you're just like, they just give you the absolute heebie-jeebies. And,
man, I mean, I've watched some and it makes you jump.
Yeah,
it's like it's whoa.
Yeah,
like it's quite scary. But I mean, like you say, it makes you trust your rope.
Yes. Yeah.
You absolutely trust the rope.
Well, it's a good thing, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think the more scary you can make the test, then the better you trust the rope at the end, because you're like, I'm not that heavy.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, something worth kind of follows on from this really nicely is, all the guys at Edelrid are really keen climbers, obviously. And there was a video, it was a couple of years ago, I think. You've probably seen it, of guy Mikel Caminati coming off, I think it was the Elder Statesman or the New Statesman or something, in the peak. And it's a sharp, for anyone that doesn't know, it's a sharp gritstone arete, and he falls down the arete, his rope drags, and it actually cuts his rope on the arete, and he ends up with a ground fall. Edelrid saw that and then thought, right, we can sort this out, and they developed our Protect range, which effectively it's a Swift, which is an 8.9 triple rated rope from us, was the first rope to receive it. What they effectively did was weave aramid, which is an incredibly strong static fiber, heat proof, whatever, insanely strong fiber, was weaved into the sheath of the rope. So effectively what we've got is an 8.9 mil rope with the cut resistance of a big chunky 10 mil rope, just by weaving the aramid into the sheath. Which, the testing for that is incredible, because they've effectively got a glorified angle grinder with a really sharp blade moving at slow speed, and then they stick the rope on it, and they were basically measuring on a lab test effectively how cut resistant this rope was.
Wow.
Stuff like that, we're pushing for it to become a standard. It might have happened already, but I mean, even really, if you really think about the technology of what's going on, they've managed to weave an incredibly static fiber into a dynamic rope, but kept it stretchy while still getting the benefit of the static fibre.
Yeah, it's,
You know, it's
special kind of magic, isn't it?
Oh man, I mean, again, I'd love to tell you how they do it, but I don't know.
No.
Like the amount of times I walk around the Edelrid factory and gone, how does this work? Oh, we can't tell you. How does this?
Yeah.
So little things like that, you know, like the amount of research and technology going into these ropes is insane.
Well, and actually, it's going to save my life. Yeah, it's that again, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
If you took it, you want to be tied on with something half decent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's not going to
indeed.
transmit all of the energy of a fall onto your soft tissue on the inside.
Yeah, well, yeah.
No, exactly. Which is why, going back, don't climb on a static rope. Not a good idea.
No. Livers and kidneys are wonderful things. We need them.
I've heard they're quite useful. I think that's about it, really. I think, we've kind of hopefully given people a kind of better understanding of what they can look for and, features. And also,
Awesome.
Why ropes, not just why Edelrid ropes, but why climbing ropes in general are quite expensive.
It's really good insight, Alex. Thank you. And like I say, as a novice or a knows nothingist, that's been really helpful for me as background as well. So that's been Outdoor Gear chat number 37. So that was all tied up. Thank you, Alex and Cathy.
Yeah, thanks, Alex and Wayne. If you would like to see the range of Edelrid ropes that we have available, we stock a wide variety of their products, not just ropes, but helmets and harnesses as well. And they are all available at www.climbers-shop.com. Or you can go onto our sister website, which has got lots and lots of peripheral information on climbing gear, how to look after it, all the extra stuff. We've got buyer's guides available as well, and there'll be a buyer's guide to ropes going up and available on there. And that is the Joe Brown Outdoor Academy website, which is www.joebrownoutdooracademy.com.